Today, we're diving into the fascinating, and maybe for some, a little unsettling, world of spiritual parasitism.
We're using a mini test from the Spiritual Seek as kind of a roadmap for our exploration.
It's all about those energetic attachments, or, well, potential attachments.
Right, the ones that some spiritual and esoteric traditions believe can impact our well-being.
So, first things first, let's acknowledge this isn't a clinical diagnosis, right?
Absolutely. This deep dive is for self-reflection, for personal exploration.
You're the expert on your own spiritual well-being.
Exactly. We'll be breaking down each statement from the test and delving into what it could mean energetically.
But remember, it's all about your own interpretation and how it resonates with you.
Okay, so the first statement says, I feel like a passenger in my own life, like I'm not in control of my thoughts, feelings, or actions.
This one jumps right into the idea of personal agency or, the lack of it.
Yeah, and when we think about spiritual parasitism, that feeling of not being in control, it could be seen as a sign of outside influence.
Like something else is pulling the strings.
Some spiritual traditions believe that, yes, negative energies or even entities can latch on to someone and mess with their thoughts, feelings, you name it.
Wow, okay. Statement number 2. I feel constantly drained no matter how much I rest. It's like something is sucking the life out of me.
This one's relatable.
I mean, who hasn't felt completely wiped out in this crazy world?
True. But looking at it esoterically, this points to that idea of energy depletion.
Something's zapping your energy, leaving you exhausted all the time.
And it connects with the idea of spiritual parasites feeding off your life force.
All right, moving on to statement 3. I feel like I'm being watched all the time, even when I'm completely alone. It's a very unsettling feeling.
This one goes beyond just feeling self-conscious.
It's like a deep sense of unease.
It could be interpreted as a heightened awareness of subtle energies.
Like you're picking up on something that's not quite visible.
Some traditions believe that negative entities can be sensed energetically, even if we can't physically see them.
Okay, that's definitely creepy. Statement 4. I'm having these really disturbing nightmares that leave me feeling shaken and anxious when I wake up.
So we all have nightmares sometimes,
But these are different, right?
in the context of spiritual parasitism, these vivid, disturbing, recurring nightmares, they're sometimes seen as a kind of psychic attack.
Like something's trying to get into your head while you sleep.
The thought is that when our defenses are down during sleep, negative energies or entities might try to, well, infiltrate our consciousness.
That's intense. Okay, next up. Certain places or people make me feel incredibly uneasy and drained. I try to avoid them, but sometimes I can't.
We've all had those experiences of feeling uncomfortable around certain people or in certain places.
But could this be more than just a personality clash?
Possibly. Some people are believed to be more sensitive to the energies of other people or even certain locations.
Like energetic sponges.
In a way, yes. If you consistently feel drained or uneasy around someone or somewhere, it could mean their energy doesn't vibe with yours.
Or that the place itself is holding on to some negative energy.
Right, that's where energetic sensitivity comes into play.
Makes sense. Last statement. I used to feel so connected to my spirituality, but now it feels like there's a wall between me and my higher power.
This speaks to a shift in someone's spiritual experience.
Like they've lost that connection.
That feeling of disconnection from your spiritual practices or a sense of separation from your higher power, it could be a sign of energetic blockage.
So something's interfering with that connection.
The idea is that a spiritual parasite or negative energy could be creating that barrier between you and, well, your source of spiritual strength.
Now that we've gone through each statement, let's look at how this test makes sense of your answers.
The Spiritual Seek test uses a really straightforward scoring system. It's based on how many of these statements resonate with you.
Simple enough.
So if none of those statements felt relatable, the test suggests you're probably not experiencing any significant spiritual parasitism right now.
Good news for some, I'm sure.
But if you relate it to one or two statements, it hints at some potential energy imbalances or minor influences.
Like maybe from stress, a tough environment, or just a bit of energetic sensitivity.
Right. Now, if 3 or 4 statements rang true for you, it suggests a more noticeable pattern.
Meaning there's a higher chance of energetic attachments or negative influences affecting your well-being.
And finally, if 5 or 6 of those statements felt spot on, well, the test indicates a significant number of strong indicators associated with spiritual parasitism.
A lot to unpack there.
We can't stress enough that this is a self-assessment tool. It's about reflection. not a clinical diagnosis.
But these results can offer valuable insights into your energetic state.
They can highlight potential areas where you might be vulnerable.
All right, let's dive into each score range a bit more.
Let's see what the spiritual seek recommends for each level of potential spiritual parasitism.
Sounds good.
So, for those who didn't select any statements, the spiritual seek emphasizes the importance of, well, good spiritual hygiene.
Keeping things clean, energetically speaking.
Exactly. It's about sticking with your self-care practices, your mindfulness, whatever spiritual practices work for you.
And they also highlight setting healthy boundaries.
Being proactive in your relationships and your environment.
That can help prevent those energetic imbalances from popping up in the future.
Now, for those who felt one or two statements were true, the spiritual seek recommends adding regular energetic cleansing and self-care practices into your routine.
Like smudging, salt baths, those kinds of things.
Yes, exactly. Or even just spending time in nature, meditation, visualization.
And really paying attention to your energy levels and emotions.
To see if there are any patterns or triggers contributing to those imbalances.
It's all about identifying what might be throwing things off.
And they suggest strengthening your energetic boundaries through visualization and intention setting.
Like building up those energetic walls.
Exactly. It's a way to protect your energy field. Now, for those who resonated with 3 or 4 statements, the spiritual seek recommends taking a deeper look at those energetic clearing techniques.
Maybe working with a spiritual practitioner or an energy healer.
Someone you trust who can help identify and remove any potential attachments.
And they also suggest tackling any underlying emotional or psychological issues.
Because those can make you more vulnerable.
So seeking guidance from a therapist or counselor might be helpful alongside your spiritual practices.
Right, it's a two-pronged approach.
Now, if you're related to 5 or 6 statements, the spiritual seek strongly advises getting guidance from a qualified spiritual practitioner, energy healer, or therapist as soon as possible.
At that level, professional help might be needed to address the situation.
Because it could be pretty serious.
And they recommend reaching out to a licensed mental health professional, too.
To help with any emotional or psychological distress that might be going on.
It's about addressing both the energetic and the emotional.
Taking a holistic approach to well-being.
Always remember your well-being comes first. If any of this is ringing true for you, don't hesitate to get help.
It's a sign of strength to reach out for support when you need it.
Absolutely.
So there's this disclaimer in the Spiritual Seek mini-test.
It emphasizes how important it is to use your own judgment.
And to be self-aware when interpreting the results.
Right. It says the test is mainly designed to get people thinking.
To encourage contemplation.
And that the results are more like suggestions.
Not the final word.
Exactly. The test can offer valuable insights, but
you're the one who ultimately knows your own psychological and spiritual well-being best.
Right.
It's interesting, it mentions that the test was created by professionals.
In psychology and spiritual research.
So they're trying to bridge the gap between those two fields.
Yeah, recognizing that our psychological and spiritual selves are connected.
The disclaimer also mentions subtle blockages.
Or interference.
What could that mean in the context of this test?
It could be any subtle energetic disturbances.
Or influences that might not be obvious.
But could still be affecting your well-being.
Like what kind of things?
For example, maybe you have some unexplained emotional pattern.
Or recurring negative thoughts.
Or maybe you feel stuck in your spiritual growth.
So it's about tuning in to those subtle signs.
And exploring what they might mean energetically.
It encourages a deeper level of self-awareness.
And a willingness to explore what's going on inside.
The Spiritual Seek actually provides an audio explanation with the test.
But we won't be getting into that in our deep dive today.
We've already covered the main points of the test and how to interpret it.
Right.
So what are the key takeaways for our listeners?
What does all of this mean? This deep dive invites us to think about the energetic dimension of our existence.
And the possibility that there are unseen influences impacting our well-being.
It reminds us that our well-being is multifaceted.
It includes our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual aspects.
It also encourages us to think about energetic hygiene.
The practices and awareness that help maintain a healthy and balanced energetic state.
Exactly. And if any of these concepts really resonate with you, or if you have any concerns, remember that seeking professional guidance is always a good idea.
From a trusted spiritual practitioner or a mental health professional.
It's always wise to reach out for support if you need it.
So we've talked about the potential signs of spiritual parasitism and some ways to address it.
But what about getting professional help?
Yeah, if someone feels like they might be experiencing this, What kind of support is out there?
Well, it's important to understand that this concept isn't really part of conventional medicine or psychology.
So we're not talking about a typical doctor's appointment.
Right. Someone might look into energy healers or spiritual practitioners.
The kind of practitioners who specialize in clearing negative energies and attachments.
Exactly. They might use techniques like Reiki or shamanic practices or other energy-based modalities.
Sounds like finding a practitioner who really aligns with your personal beliefs would be key.
Absolutely. You want to feel comfortable and safe with the person you're working with?
So do your research, get referrals, and trust your gut.
Couldn't agree more. What about more traditional mental health support? Could that be helpful too?
It's definitely something to consider. A therapist might not directly address the idea of spiritual parasitism.
But they can definitely help you work through any emotional distress or anxiety or fear that you might be experiencing
And they can help you develop coping mechanisms.
for managing those challenging symptoms,
So it's a holistic approach again.
addressing both the energetic and the emotional aspects.
Finding the right combination of support that works for you.
Our deep dive has explored a topic that's often misunderstood. We've examined those potential signs of spiritual parasitism, looked at the self-assessment tool from the Spiritual Seek, and discussed ways to address this concept from both the energetic and emotional perspectives,
It's been a really valuable conversation.
highlighting how important self-awareness is.
And energetic hygiene.
And, of course, seeking professional guidance when you need it.
Your well-being is what matters most.
If any of this resonates with you, if you're feeling overwhelmed, please don't hesitate to reach out for support.
There are resources available and practitioners who can help you navigate these complex aspects of your being.
And who can help you reclaim your energetic balance.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of spiritual parasitism. We hope you found it insightful and empowering as you explore your own energetic well-being.